text of this Sunday, this Scout Sunday, is taken from the Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 and 14. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. The Gospel we just heard this morning is the second part of what is known as the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount that Barbara last Sunday referred to as the greatest sermon ever preached. It is that sermon which is for us the equivalent of the Ten Commandments. For just as Moses went up the Mount Sinai to receive and to share the Ten Commandments of God, so in Matthew, Jesus climbs the mount by the Sea of Galilee to share with all the people not God's laws, not the rules, the regs, the rights, the wrongs, the shoulds and should-nots. Jesus climbs the mount to share with God's people the message of God's blessing. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are the sad. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure. Blessed are those who are peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted. These are the blessings of God. And the first thing to notice is God is blessing people. People who are poor. People who are sad. People who are meek. God's blessing is upon people. And it has nothing to do with the affirmation or rejection of their circumstance. We are inclined to see people by the quality of their condition of life. So if we see someone who is poor, we go, that's a poor person. Or if we see somebody who is persecuted, we go, must be something wrong there. We use our values to label people, not by who they are, but by their circumstance. And the first thing that God says to us is God values us, blesses us, not because of the way we live, but because of who we are and who God is. The God who loves each of us, and the God who blesses all of us. That's the first message of that Sermon on the Mount. But the implications are further still. Because what God is saying to us is the blessings of God are not remediations. They're not there as therapeutic accommodations. It's not like, oh, you poor person, you need a blessing. Or, oh, you hungry person, you need a blessing. Those are our values interpreting God's values. Those are us judging God's values by the standards that we hold. But in fact, the standards and values of God are completely, alternatively different from ours. We celebrate wealth. Wealth, in our estimation, is a blessing. According to God, blessed are the poor. We celebrate happiness, but according to God, it's those who are in the state of sadness which enjoy the blessing of God. The meek, that is God's blessing, but we celebrate the powerful. The persecuted, but we want to celebrate those who are completely cared for. The values of God and our values are completely, totally opposite. And we need to appreciate that we appropriate our values and apply those to others. We are standing in contradiction to the meaning and value of God. It is a judgment upon us then. Because as we live in a dependent situation on our values for our self-affirmation, as we look to our wealth to remind us how good we are, or our happiness to remind us how good we are, or any of the qualities of the world that we lift up as those things by which we measure our lives by. When we remove all those earthly values, what is left of our self-affirmation? What is left for us to build our lives on? There's a judgment in these values of God, these blessings of God, upon how we see ourselves and upon how we live our lives. In fact, the Sermon on the Mount suggests something even further. That those who are blessed are actually more privileged than the rest of us. We who celebrate our privileged lives are at a disadvantage because we rely upon all these material things, all these qualities which the world celebrates and God rejects, because these are barriers between us and our Lord. Those who are not privileged, who live without the benefits which we enjoy, have only the love and the presence of God in their lives to lift them up and make them fulfilled. They are the ones who carry God closest in their hearts. And therein lies our hope, that we need not live lives which are addicted and convicted by the values of this world. There is the opportunity for us to be liberated from that and to live out that quality of a life which is blessed. That is the first part of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus then wants to take that into a call to action. If you are blessed, then you are the salt of the earth. If God has blessed you, then you are the light of the world. If God has blessed you, then you are meant to lead blessed lives as well. And what does that look at? Well, these blessings are not just gospel blessings. They're not just Jesus blessings. I'm here to tell you that this is a Lancaster County blessing. I know that for a fact because on a regular basis, I see a fella who is the parking lot attendant at the Lancaster General Hospital. And I'm over there almost every day of the week, and he's been there almost every day of the week. And while we don't know each other personally, after all these years, we know each other inside. And every day when I'm leaving the hospital parking garage, as I pull up to the gate with the bar down, he opens the window and he always says to me, the biggest smile on his face, "My brother, have a blessed day." And he means it. That is what he wants from me. Not have a nice day, not have a good day. He wants me to have a Lancaster County blessed day. This life of blessing is a Lancaster County value. The life we are called to lead as the salt of the earth and the light of the world is the life which we cherish and celebrate. And it's a life which we cherish and celebrate, which is important for us to know the dimensions thereof, of what it means to be light and what it means to be salt. And that came clear to me this past week, Cindy and I were watching television, when suddenly was a news feed interruption broadcasting live from the University of California, the Berkeley campus. And it's a student protest. They're protesting a particular speaker, very controversial, very conservative, and that's part of the university's policy of freedom of speech. But that free speech endowed person was also being confronted by free speech students to protest his particular message. And that's called being salty. Getting out there and adding salt to the world. But there was another element present, and that were those people who were dressed in black fatigues, their faces covered, who were not there to protest, but to act out in violence, throwing fire bombs, assaulting the police officers and the firemen. That is when salt becomes too salty. Salt is that which gives life. Salt is something we need. Salt is something which we use in our food that enhances. But too much salt is dangerous to your health. Too much salt ruins your meal. We need salty people living out the gospel, but not with that kind of quality of salt. Too much salt is simply too much. We need to be that salt people. We need to be that light people. People of salt and of light. But we also need to be aware that there is a danger of not just salt and light, but the danger of the mixture of church and state. I was stunned on Friday to open up my copy, the LNP, see on the front page, Church and State. An article that goes on to say that our current president, our new president, wants to abolish a law that separates church from state. Now, I've been preaching for 38 years, and never in 38 years have I mentioned anything political or any political figure in my sermons. Because for me, that's just not right. It is just not right for me to use the authority given to me to tell you how to vote or who to vote for. I'm here to preach the gospel, to celebrate the values of God, to share those with you, and allow you to make your own choices, have your own thoughts, make your own decisions, not tell you what to do. But currently, there is a movement afoot to change all of that. There is a law called the Johnson Amendment. It was passed during the Eisenhower administration. How many people here remember the Eisenhower administration? Some hands, but not a lot. That's how long ago this law was passed. And the law said quite explicitly, clergy, ordained people, were not to endorse candidates from the pulpit. Absolutely forbidden. And the reason is that it is embedded in the First Amendment of the Constitution. The First Amendment, which celebrates the freedom of speech, but also prohibits the establishment of religion. The First Amendment creates the wall of separation between church and state. From the very beginning of our nation, we were convicted. We did not want to have that toxic witch's brew of church and state mixing. It's one of the founding principles and salvations of our country. But now that very First Amendment Bill of Right, plus a law that dates from the Eisenhower administration, is being challenged. This is not a good thing. It is not a good thing. I've never allowed myself to engage in politics, and it is no time for politics to start entering God's church. And the reason, in addition to all that we've stated above, is because this is world values, and we are here to celebrate the values of God. That is our focus as God's people, to lift up the gospel, to share God's values, and to grow in the grace of what God gives to us. And that's why on this Sunday I am so proud to celebrate the ministry of Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and their leaders. Because they are being formed through their participation in scouting in a deep and unique way. The values that they are given, the opportunities to serve, shape them into young men and young women that we can be proud of. And that we can say, share in the gospel vision of God. The vision of God that we are all called to be. That we are called to be those people who are blessed by God, those people called to be servants of God, those people who are called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world.